my 4-5 state league team is looking for more players. I don't know if that's like.
When do you play?
Wednesday.
Ira would probably be pissed at me if. Well, first of all, I would have to get a 4.5 rating.
Oh, really? That's the issue. Because Ira's doesn't have a team this year, so we actually have Scott.
Oh, really?
We have Scott Brody this year.
Oh, wow.
So I was thinking, the essential tennis characters.
The last I played USTA, I had just been bumped up to 5.0, but that was like 6 years ago.
Okay.
And so I haven't played USTA since then. So I don't know how it works. If I could try to come back in at 4.5, or if they just automatically.
Yeah. Well, neither do I. But we can talk about.
Could try to
too.
appeal. Yeah.
It'd be fun. I got an image of Ash from Pokemon leaving Palantown with his backpack and Pikachu just
leaving to conquer the world.
Yeah.
I love it.
Welcome to Shankcast number 30. Today we're going to be talking about the difference between high school tennis and college tennis. I find it kind of interesting. I mean, I wouldn't have even picked this topic to put on the poll in the first place, Mark, and I'm curious or interested why it found its way up towards the top of this.
To be honest, I have no idea because I made this post literally 4.5 hours ago because I'm like, oh crap, we needed topics. But this has not really been talked about ever in any type of, not even just a podcast setting. Yeah. But there's no YouTube, there's no article online that I've seen like, hey, this is the difference between a typical high school varsity kind of like day-to-day competition versus a college competition, whether it's NCAA, D1, D2, D3, JUCO, which is junior college, or even NAIA. So thought we'd break the ice with this one and see if we could help some people out here.
Cool. So let's go around the table and let's give 30-second or 2-minute college experience, so everybody knows kind of where we're coming from and what our experience is. Mark, what was your high school and college?
Rolling Meadows High School, which is the northwest suburbs of Illinois. We're mainly known for football, so tennis was definitely not top tier. But there are some top tier schools that have tennis just as good as basketball, football, stuff like that. So varsity for 4 years in high school, and went to Whitewater, Wisconsin, which is a nationally ranked Division III program for both men's and women's. I made the team my freshman and sophomore year, and then I became an assistant coach and hitting partner my junior and senior year because they're good. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so I went to varsity all 4 years. I grew up in the UP in Menominee, so we didn't have states, and we had what was called UPs. Basically, you play all the Upers in the. So I didn't even know what states was until I got to Ferris. Everyone's like, I went to state. I'm like, what the hell is state? I'm like, we had a. But anyway, so yeah, I won. So our school broke a streak of 54 years. We won the UPs back to back. And I won my division twice or something, and then I went to Ferris and got a reality check. I wasn't good enough to play college tennis, so I played on the club team at Ferris, but I never played college tennis.
I played at a small private high school. I was homeschooled until my junior year of high school, so I played one singles. I don't know, it was 400 or 500 kids at the school. So one singles for 2 years, my junior and senior year of high school, and then went to Ferris as well. And they were top 20, top 30 in Division II when I was there. I didn't make the team my first year, walked on my second year, and then played 6 singles and 3 doubles through the rest of my college career. So what do you guys feel? We've all coached, we've all played high school, we've all been around college tennis. What do you guys feel is the big? What does it take for a high school athlete who's maybe a good high school athlete? And I think that's important. Let's talk about ranges of, because I think based on geography, based on the level of competition in your particular area, I think it's so easy to feel like a big dog. Like you're just talking about this.
Yep.
But the reality is, and one of my biggest pet peeves, if I can just vent on this just for 20 seconds, one of my biggest pet peeves on the internet is we'll title a match play video like D1 versus D3 or whatever, and everybody's like, wait, why is the D1 player losing to the he's not a real D1 player, or he'd smash the D3 player. And guys, there's in every level of competitive tennis, there's a huge range from college included, professional included, high school included, from the bottom of that whatever that system is, from the bottom to the top, is a massive 4-0 tennis. From the bottom of 4-0 to the top of 4-0 is a huge range.
When people think of D1 tennis, when they think of that, they think of UCLA,
Right?
Yeah.
Miami,
Stanford,
Ohio State.
John Isner played D1, so that's like a D1.
That's every player,
right? The bottom of D1, like we at Ferris, like we played
Western
occasionally. Yeah, we played D1, and it was like 70 nationally and D1. So it wasn't like a top elite like D1 school, but a top 20 D2 school was competitive with a number 70 like D1 school, for example. So you need way more context than just like the division, and I think the same thing is true of high school as well.
Correct. And with high school, a lot of it is very much limited on geography because let's assume that 90% of the high schools are public schools, right? I would say 1 out of 10 are private schools. I'll look at the stats later, but let's just assume that. Well, with public schools, unless there's something, with the policies of the municipality or the county or the state, you're going to a high school based on your geography, based on where your family is living. So there's a huge gap between, someone that grew up in the Metro Milwaukee area or, God forbid, the Chicago metropolitan area versus someone in Montana. Like, I have no idea what Montana is. I'm sure, the UP was a little bit more sparse, but you probably had more people than, the center of Montana. So there's a wide range in high school.
Shout out to Montana.
Yeah, I got nothing. I got
our 2 listeners in Montana are like really pissed at you right now.
So just like there is a broader range, in my opinion, of what you might experience in varsity high school tennis versus D1, D2, or D3 college. Because with colleges, you choose to go to a college for one reason or another. So
and those divisions come with certain like funding and like it's assuming a certain scale and amount of students to draw from and stuff like that. Where high school is like just open. Yeah, it's open for everybody.
Yeah. So what background do we should we just assume with on the high school then? Like Milwaukee, Madison area?
Well, okay, so let me start with this. So yeah, based on that kind of groundwork that we just laid, I think it's critical for anybody who's listening. If you're a parent, if you're a high school player, and I get these kind of questions on YouTube like constantly. Like, how do I know what level I am? If you want to know where you fit in the grand scheme of things in the world of tennis, you have to leave your little circle of like the players you normally hit with and the coach who normally gives you lessons and the club where you always like play the challenge ladder, and you have to leave and go someplace else and sign up for something that's outside of your like comfort zone. If you don't ever do that and you stay in your little bubble, then you're gonna get shocked at some point.
I got an image of like Ash from Pokemon leaving Pallet Town with his backpack and Pikachu just
leaving to conquer the world.
Yeah,
I love it.
But no, like I interviewed years ago a top D1 coach specifically to answer the question, because I get it so often on YouTube. Can I be a professional tennis player? I get
chances are no.
I don't like answering with that, but I mean, it's one of those things.
Chances are.
It's one of those things where it's like if you're asking the question, like it's not looking good for you.
Yeah.
But I did like a 45-minute interview with a top D1 college coach, who most of his players have like ATP points, and it's like kind of 1 foot in each, professional and college, to give people some perspective on like what does it take to get up to that level. Most people don't know because they don't expose themselves to what's outside of their immediate bubble. So I guess I would just lead with just saying anybody who's listening who wants to answer that question for themselves, sign up for whatever your age group is, sign up for your state or like probably not regional. Like if you don't know yet, probably just sign up for a state's tournament in whatever your age group is or level that you think you're in, and just go play and just go find out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. For the high school, again, students that or players that might be listening or parents, in high school, remember, it's tiered, right? You have 1 singles, 2 singles, 3 singles, and the theory behind it is the 1 is the best, and obviously so on and so forth. So if you're going into a tournament, if let's assume everybody on your high school team is 16 years old, let's just for argument's sake, 1 through 4, or whatever it is, and you played a tournament, you're all in the same tournament. You're assumed, you're in an open tournament, you're assumed you're all the same level. So you'll get a little dose of reality check in that as well. And it could be on the positive, it could be on the negative. If you're the number 4, maybe you beat the number 1 and then, wow, something's clicking here. Or, you know what, you got beat by a number 3, 0-0. It'll start to give you a little broader range of what the realistic expectations. And I think more so, too, for people that are listening and possibly wanting to play college tennis, I think the first advice I would give, if you're not big baller D1 right away material, where you're playing at a pretty big time high school where you're 1 and 2 and you're already having the college coaches look at you, is put in perspective of what is most important to you. Like, I could have played college tennis, just not at Ferris State. Like, I could have gone somewhere to play college. It could have been in Montana that nobody knew about, but that wasn't a goal of mine, though. Like, I really wanted to play college tennis, but I didn't want to give up the other aspect of it. So we've gotten that question before too, and it's just more of like, where do you see yourself going, and things like that. So that's kind of the tough one too, because most of the people fall into that range where you're not having college coaches come to you and seeking you out. I mean, like, you're a great example of, you had to, so for those that didn't know, Ferris, we had a what was called a walk-on tournament. So it was everybody, and we came from what was called professional tennis management. So we had, at the time, we had like 70 kids in our class, and probably like 60 of them were guys. I don't even know if there was 10 girls in our class, but so I would probably say we had at least a 32 draw. We actually had whether everybody wanted to make the team or not, but so you had to compete against a real life tournament to get on the team, and that's a reality of a lot. They have
maybe
walk-ons.
one spot, or
for one
or 2 spots.
1 or 2 spots. So I mean, even though you had to still compete to earn your spot, you just didn't get to come to Ferris and say, "Hey,
I'm a good tennis player.
I'm pretty good. Like, and I'm left-handed.
Put me on the team, coach."
So, I mean, even and that's the reality of most players. They're not getting scholarship money and things like that.
Believe it or not, that type of walk-on tournament, which, by the way, I'm a huge fan of, to at least have one spot be open to whoever's hungry enough to get it, even if they go to the university or college, with tennis not being top of the mind. Because I believe University of Wisconsin, I don't know if University of Wisconsin-Madison still does it. I think they previously did. And they're a very competitive D1 team. I don't know if they're nationally ranked this year. But I know that I think it was either Michigan or Michigan State did that as well. Because one of my former colleagues, Jason, played on the walk-on tournament there. And funny enough, he ended up playing, I think, Todd Martin in a tournament. Yeah. And he was a walk-on. He just
Wait, what school?
Either Michigan or Michigan State.
Yeah,
I get them confused.
Because he went to Martin went to Northwestern, right? Todd Martin?
Yes, he did.
That's a baller walk-on tournament.
No, they get feisty at the semifinals because they want that 1-2 spot.
For sure.
It's fantastic. I personally believe every college program should do that for both their men's and women's team.
I'm a big proponent of that as well.
Because that's gloves are off.
Yep.
Let's do this. And let's see, where I was getting at, man, I lost my train of thought.
Happens to the best of us.
The caffeine got to me.
Well, I think the underlying theme here is like you have to put yourself out there in the ring, like in the octagon with other players, and until you do that, there's no sense in sitting at home and asking yourself the question how good could I really be? Like the players who are going to find the answer to that question are in the process of discovering. The only way to do that is through experience.
And look, like the reality of it too, again, parents and players, is not everybody has the same, and we talked about this in a previous, not everybody has the same means and the same luxuries of possibly testing those waters, going state to state and doing different tournaments. And that's just a reality of life. But you typically, even if you come from a very small town, there is local tournaments to test the waters. So for me, I think I mentioned this before, so when I was growing up playing tournaments, technically I was in Michigan, but everything major to me was in Wisconsin.
Did you go to Green Bay for some
So I
tournaments?
started to go to Green Bay, but like it didn't help my ranking or something. I don't know if I don't even know if that's true, but I thought like a coach said at one point, because I'm in Michigan, and I mean this was back in the early 90s, so I don't know how rankings were done then as well. So I could be totally wrong, but yeah, I had some success there, and that kind of boosted the ego. But then I did have, there was some kids like kind of, or what you kind of talked about, where you were dominating for a little while in the 12s, and then I was having some success at another spot, but then I started playing more tournaments, and then I started getting thumped a little bit, and I was like, these kids are my same age, like nobody can compete with me at my age in my hometown, and it leveled me out as well. But I mean, it was great that kind of testing the waters for it, because you see, you mentioned it before, there's just so much talent out there. There's just so much talent.
You don't realize it until you get out there
No.
and put yourself out there. And I think a lot of I'm going to touch on this quickly. I don't know if you guys want to talk about this or not, but
I love talking about parents.
I think a lot of parents are trying. They have good intentions, but they kind of try to protect their kid from losing, or like being in the wrong. Like they don't want to see their kid just get beat up like match after match. And so they end up kind of like creating like this like unnatural cushion between their kid, and the kid then has these expectations of how good they are that aren't really in line with reality.
Oh, that is a topic on itself that you just touched on. That
Well,
hopefully
tennis
we'll
parent,
discuss.
Yeah.
We've talked
in the
about it on
future.
Shankcast with Kevin and Megan. We could keep doing episodes just on tennis parenting.
So let me bring up these 2 points before we move on, because I finally found my train of thought. It was stuck because the caboose was out of fuel. And
You need some
I'm
some
teaching later.
tennis tears.
Tennis tears. Yeah, that's actually, I'm gonna like engrave that on there. Tennis tears.
So with that is the balancing act of, not as a tennis player because it's a kid, of a parent, of letting your kid get beat up enough, figuratively speaking,
It's hard.
but not too much. Because if you it's kind of like the immune system, where if you protect your kid in a bubble, I think it was that movie Bubble Boy, like he's gonna get sick when he's an adult.
You're right.
But you don't want to drag your kid by the ankle on the sewage of the Milwaukee River in downtown, because your kid's gonna grow a third arm on the side of his face.
But it'll toughen them up.
It'll toughen it up.
Especially if you have that, you could throw a right cross like no other with that. Right.
But you want to expose your kid to, like, hey, have him play some weaker tournaments, have him play some stronger tournaments.
Yeah.
Always have that balancing act. But for the parents listening, and I know you guys have good intentions, because my parents did the exact same thing, and this is where they kind of messed up. Love you, Mom. Love you, Dad. But tennis, especially on the college level, the chances of your kid going professional is damn well near zero.
It's just zero.
It's
just zero.
Yeah.
Pick a college with education as the number one priority, because guess what's going to bring your food to the table for your kid when he or she is 23 or older?
Yeah.
It's the good job. It's a career. Have tennis be an important part of the aspect if you want to have your kid go down that route, but it shouldn't be the number one. It shouldn't be the priority, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yep.
And even if they make a college team and get a scholarship, it's not going to pay you back for all those lessons.
No, it's not.
Like, you're probably still going to
No.
come out behind on all the lessons, the tournaments, the equipment. If you're fortunate enough to go to academy or something like that, like, you're probably going to end up spending more anyway.
Unless your kid somehow makes a YouTube channel with 250,000 subscribers and teaches, then it does pay dividends.
I found a way out of that.
Well, they had an interesting article.
I didn't get no scholarship money, by the way.
Yeah,
you
you-
hear it. Yeah.
So they had an interesting article. I can't remember if it was in Advantage magazine or US one of the magazines, but it was basically like it said, if what would you say top 150 in the world on the men's side make a year?
Total
Yeah.
endorsements or prize?
All
Everything.
in.
Well, that's like just outside the break-even point.
So like 120?
I was thinking maybe between 1 and 2
Okay,
so you got
six-figure.
expenses
Yeah,
too. then.
we'll call it 120K. Let's just call it 120. But they had an article basically. So this coach was saying kind of the same thing. He was a lifetime or long-time coach. I think teaching professional. I don't think college coach, but his kid played college tennis, and he said part of it is his kid wanted it, right? And he paid for lessons and equipment and travel and all that good stuff. But he basically said even if his kid was good enough to make the pros, he goes, he's probably good enough to make it for 2 or 3 years, make $100,000 and be done.
Yeah.
And he goes, at what point can you invest in that in education and basically kind of make the same amount of money? And I mean, it went down to this, but it was a good reminder of if you are, if you're the parent out there and you're paying for these lessons and you're investing a lot of money and time and your kid wants to do it, it's not with the expectation of they're getting a college scholarship. I think a lot of parents do that as well. Yeah. And that puts a lot of angst on both sides of the side of the fence. You're doing it to grow your kid into something they're enjoying doing.
Better human being.
Yeah. And again, the comment that I've gotten through my entire life, and I think we've all been fortunate in this sense, as an adult, there are not many sports you can keep competing in as you get older.
Are you saying you don't see 55-year-olds playing full tackle football?
No, exactly.
I would pay to see that. By the way.
Yeah, that would be a great YouTube channel.
The game probably wouldn't make it to the end.
But I mean, that's a great thing, and you have that something you can compete
It's like
on
whichever
for
bench
life.
is done first.
Yeah, that would be actually fantastic. Oh my hammy right out of the gate.
That might be a few human rights breaches right there.
But I think that's the big thing too of kind of what the overall line goal is of that. And again, it could be the other thing as well. So in D3, they do not give out scholarship money.
Correct.
For air quotes for your playing ability. They can give you for academics, even though you have like a 2.2 or something.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
They'll find a way.
Yeah, but
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, but let's assume again, you'd be a great example. You never got any scholarship money, and if your parents, they could have pumped all this money in, there was no investment coming
ROI
back.
there.
Yeah, there was no ROI.
Well, no tangible.
No, correct. No tangible.
Financial.
Financial. But again, I think that's the reality too. Is if you're kind of putting it in, that's the hard thing. As a parent and a student, you're doing your own work on this.
Yeah.
Even at the club you're at, you're in a high performance junior. Unless you're like in a true academy, like for me, when I was in the indoor scene, I didn't have like a Rolodex, not cell phone at the time.
Hey.
I didn't have a 10 college coaches I could call on and say, hey, you have to check out this one stud kid. I didn't have that. I couldn't really help. That wasn't my niche or as well. So I think that's tough too, is like there's not a lot of places to go. It's a little bit of a lonely road in that respect.
And bringing it back to like the dynamic of a college team, whether it's D3, D2, or NAIA, and I have friends that are currently playing in every single one, except I don't have any JUCO friends, junior college friends that play tennis on their team. But, with high school varsity, right, let's say in Madison or Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is a pretty sizable metropolitan area, and, it's populous, but it's not huge like in Texas or bigger parts of California. But as you said with, that tournament, it's a hierarchy, right?
Yep.
1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3 is 3, 4 is 4. And it's pretty clear cut with some exceptions, and that's okay. But in college, everybody's going after each other, especially on the single spots.
Yeah,
for sure.
Where the difference between 1 and 2 of a good
Nobody's
D3
safe
team
ever.
No.
Yeah.
is like this thin. It's like, hey, how much work did you do the past literally 2 weeks? That's going to decide the tiebreaker. So it's a lot more cutthroat.
Yep.
On a college team for both men's and women's. And, with varsity high school, if you're the number one stud coming in, it's pretty cemented. It's like, how far can you get to state, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, in my experience playing number 6 at the bottom spot, in
That's to me, the
D2
toughest
college.
spot.
I played challenge matches constantly.
That's
Really?
the most challenging spot. My personal opinion, that is the most challenging spot in college tennis because you're hanging on by a thread every practice.
Yeah.
Because you typically like maybe even 5 a little bit, but I definitely 6 because you're one challenge match away from like Ian.
Not
we're
being
gonna
on the team.
we're gonna sit you this week, and then we'll see what happens, and then you have to grind back and win your spot again. I mean that's tough.
Was there a number 7 on the team that's on the bench?
When I was there, we
For,
had
like,
either
injury,
one
right?
or two
Okay.
like
They would dress
spare players.
yeah,
That's
for
not
like
right- that's not the right
injury.
word.
Yeah.
but like extra team, like they would come to practices, but they weren't like on the lineup.
So
Yep.
when you play a challenge match against those guys, you're like,
Right.
okay,
it's a must win. Yeah,
must
if
win.
I
Okay.
lose that match, I'm out of the lineup.
Yep.
And I don't know how often you played your number 1 guy, but a number 4 singles player of a varsity high school, at least in Wisconsin, would never play a serious match against the number 1. But in
Yeah.
college, it does happen.
Yeah.
Just
Definitely.
to say, hey, this is a good practice match for the number 1 guy, and then for the number 6 guy, who's obviously clearly the underdog based on the hierarchy, let's see what he can do.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah, in college, I didn't do a whole lot of single sparring against our top players, but doubles, I was in the mix constantly with our top players. And yeah, it's completely different from high school for sure. Let's talk about a few other like tangible, like practical differences in terms of making the jump, like tactically, physically, athleticism, like making the jump from high school to college. What do you guys think are the most important, physical or mental or tactical or technical aspects?
I would say the mindset of college tennis, and this is coming from a D3 background, it's almost like a part-time job, even during the summer.
Yeah.
After teaching tennis, which is what most college tennis kids do, is they teach tennis during the summer. I was working out. I was finding tournaments. I was playing challenge matches like at least every other day to keep myself sharp. And with high school tennis, even varsity, if you're athletic enough and you're physical enough, you could only play during the outdoor season for high school tennis and be typically fine on the varsity level. That can't happen in any type of college sport in a competitive setting. I don't know if that's your experience as well in high school tennis.
High school for sure. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like I trained more in high school. I was like so hungry in high school. In college, I worked a lot in summers. I was on the court a lot, and I remember doing training sessions. But to be honest, I could have worked less and done more challenge practice matches and working out and stuff like that. I probably should have done more, honestly.
Yeah, I would say, just for some context, though, I would say with Ian and I going to Ferris, the tricky thing was that was like our profession, though, too. So we had to do internships. And I would probably say the majority of the players that played at Ferris didn't train in the summers. Just they didn't have the time. They're on court 40 hours, and that's the last thing you want to do. But making that transition, I think the biggest thing in it the physical stuff is all good and to talk about. It really depends how you want to start to train your body. It has your and all of that. But I think it's more of understanding the commitment and the time management that goes into a college athletic, and I don't care if it's tennis, swimming, whatever, is okay, you're going and you're taking a full lot of classes, and then you're practicing 2 hours a day, and then you're possibly putting in some extra workout time, and now you got your school. And when other normal students are going out and partying, reality is you have to wake up the next morning for a match, and you're going on road trips.
Get in the van, yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean,
and be away from classes for a week.
Yeah, I think that is a tough transition, and I've seen it go both ways. I've seen it where students say, "I just can't handle both," and that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, but they can't handle both, and their academics start to suffer, and they need to take a pause on it, and they're like, "This is more important." And some that kind of figure it out, but I mean, you give up things, and this was, I think we talked about this last time. So my wife played at Ferris State, and my sophomore year of college, like I was super bummed I didn't play college tennis. for a little bit. But my sophomore year, I went
still
to
cry every night.
Yeah, I went to Cancun while she was grinding out matches, and you were grinding out matches in Florida, playing like I don't know how many times you guys played, and you always looked. Yeah, it looked like you had fun, but I was in Cancun. That's all I gotta say.
Found the partier here.
Yes, but that was like those are trade-offs. You guys didn't get to enjoy spring breaks of like you got to enjoy the competing of it, which yes, I miss, but that's where
You have to know what you want.
Yeah, and I think that's more of to me the biggest jump of in high school. And again, you're putting in the time, and I'm talking more of the high school players that are not going to play the 1 spot or 2 spot, and maybe D1, D2, or T3. It's the rest of the core of you're probably good enough. Like you don't have to probably put in as much effort in high school, and that's just life. But when you get into college, you're on your own. You don't have your parents on your back telling you to do things. It's all the responsibility falls on your shoulders, and that's I think that's really tough.
So that's one of the things that I didn't even think about when writing this and posting it on the community is the time management of being an athlete in college. Where, as you said, if you're in high school, you're in school between 7:15 and 2:50, or whatever the hell time schedule you guys have for your high school. But in college, some of your tournaments, some of your matches, some of your even practices cut into your class time. So how are you going to manage that? That's nuts. I don't understand how I did it, even for 2 years, because I partied way too much and made stupid decisions. And I somehow have an undergrad. And
I made it.
I know, right?
Good work.
4 years too. That's a tough one. I somehow made it, but that's one of the things where I see some very prominent and talented tennis players going to college, and they fall apart not only in the tennis scene but also in their academics because they can't. They had mom and dad. I'm sure they love you, but they did everything for you. Mm-hmm. We're in college.
You're on your own.
You do you.
Yeah.
But also on the flip side, I've seen some okay tennis players in high school with okay academics. They bloomed in college because they were willing to take on that responsibility.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's you're like you made a good point. I can't remember if it was the beginning of this episode or our last episode where at Ferris it was encouraged you work out or you do things on your own, and whether and that's probably every program, and whether kids choose to do that or not do that's on them. And I will say it is a very difficult thing to ask a 18, 19-year-old kid to put in the effort to go extra and beyond at that level.
What you have to do.
What you have to do, especially if you're kind of hovering in that middle area,
For sure.
right? And you again, we can't compare, and taking another sport, you can't compare like the stud quarterback at Florida, who's probably going to go pro, where the job is them to play to go pro.
It's baked in. Like,
they're not there for school, and
which is unfortunate.
And that's another topic. But they are putting in the extra hours in physical training, studying film, where their schooling is basket weaving or whatever they're taking, right? But that is, again, what real percent is that? And in tennis, there's really not on that end, because you don't. Your number one college player that is the best in the country, they typically might go pro, but
it's still up to you. It's still like a personal like responsibility.
Right.
You're not like getting scouted by NFL teams.
No.
Or like you have to still pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Isn't that amazing? As tennis players, like there's no scouting reports.
No.
I mean, there might be scouting reports.
You just
from
win.
high school
You just
too.
win.
Yeah, you just win.
Go out there.
You either win or you go home.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
And just imagine all those pro NFL like number one picks that were just absolute duds. Well, it's because they look good on paper, and you take someone like Tom Brady, who is the greatest quarterback that ever lived. You can't deny that statistic. He was like
sixth round
pick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and guess what? He wins Super Bowls
at age 40. What is he? 42?
He's
41?
He's 43, I think.
43?
43. I think he'll be 44 next season.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
That Super Bowl at age 43 might be the most impressive professional like stat of all
100%.
time. Athletic stat.
Maybe if Nadal is winning the
Yeah,
French
let's
Open
wait and
at
see.
65.
Yeah.
65.
Just like he's in a wheelchair,
Yeah,
still
he's
somehow
got-
wins
just
Grand Slam tennis tournaments against the likes of Novak Djokovic's grandson at that point.
It could happen.
Yeah, it's like
Could happen.
I don't ever see him. He lost against Rublev today, but anyway, more on topic. That's an amazing thing about tennis players is that you have to go out there and just win.
Yeah.
One-on-one. It's not a team sport.
No, and that's where again and the other psychology of tennis, we've talked about this before, that is pretty unique to other sports is and you'll have to help me with the tournament, but so college athletics, right? You compete against other schools as a team. If you win on court 1, you get X amount of points, 2 doubles, but you also play in a competitive environment where you play a tournament. What tournament where everybody just got thrown in the pot?
A flight, basically.
Oh
Or no.
well, we did individual regionals and team. So
So that's what I mean.
Yeah,
individual regionals. So
Yeah.
you get basically thrown into the big girl and boy tennis where it's like it's all for all
Yep.
again. And I mean that's the crazy thing
that's right.
about tennis as a whole. Like you are
It's up
on
to
a
you.
team
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're playing against everybody in there. Like
Yeah. your spot on the team, like it all hinges on your personal responsibility.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I think other than state in high school, I don't think that ever happens because even the individual tournaments, at least from my experience in Illinois, if there's an individual tournament, you have a team put their number one player against the other number one
Yeah.
players of the high
Yep.
school.
Right.
And then same thing with number two. You never, ever, ever, unless it's state, would ever play your number one guy against your number two guy in the same bracket.
Right.
Unless maybe it's like a challenge match or
Yeah.
something like that. Where in high school or in college tennis, with the ITAs, I'm assuming that's what individual tournament stands for. It happens a lot more often than you think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the time management one is a big one.
Yeah. I just think that's the biggest wake up call for a lot of kids coming in. That's really tough. But I mean, I think the other thing too is kind of circling back is if you think you have a desire to play college tennis and you haven't ventured out, I mean that's number one step right there. You have to get out there.
Time is ticking.
Time is ticking and but here's the other thing too. It can put in perspective though of if you went out and played a tournament and you got, let's say you did okay, you didn't win it, you won a round or two, but you competed. If you want to get to that next spot, it gives you a baseline of what you have to do to get to that.
You have a
next spot.
tangible result to work
Yes,
on.
and if you choose to work towards that, and there's no guarantee you're still going to get there, great. If you kind of pull back and say, you know what, I'm content being possibly 3 on my high school team, and that's okay too. And I think, but at least it gives you a starting point to what your desire is ultimately going to be, instead of more my mentality, like I'll just make the team because I was the best player where I came from, and then getting a gut punch where like, whoa, everybody here is way better than me.
Yeah, it's a starting. In the previous episode of the Shankcast, we talked quite a bit about perspective and having the lens of like our past experiences. You have to begin that process as a junior player, even if you're not self-educating yourself about the reality of what your skills really are, then there can be a lot of very frustrating like moments ahead. If you don't venture outside your bubble, then eventually when you have to, it can be a huge like you said, like punch to the gut.
And I know this is going to be more geared towards, I'm assuming the parents or maybe even some kids that are in high school that are wanting to play college tennis or even college tennis players themselves. But expose your kid out there and just have him see where he falls in
But not
the
in the gutter.
hierarchy of tennis. What?
Not in the gutter though.
Not in the gutter.
No.
That's a little too much.
Yeah.
Maybe like muddy, like in the backyard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Rub some dirt on it.
Rub some
Yeah,
dirt on it.
right. But in a controlled environment.
controlled environment.
Yeah.
And eventually start pushing them further and further and further. You don't want it to
If
be
they
a
want to.
shot culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I always want people to be the best tennis players they could be. So start slow.
You gotta know what the player wants too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
They might just want to have fun.
Fun. What's that?
That's when you make fun of yourself after
Yeah, that's
double
where you-
faulting.
Yeah, you make sarcastic comments. And,
Good old Zverev.
All right. Well, I feel like we did a good job covering this.
Yeah.
It was interesting topic. One I didn't really see coming, but I'm glad we talked about it. And I hope it helps a lot of junior players and parents out. I know I'm gonna be sharing this link to. We get so many questions and comments in our YouTube comments on our Facebook page.
Ooh, LinkedIn would be a good one for this, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll post it.
Yeah, so great conversation. Mark and Matt, thanks for your perspectives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And would love to hear from all of you. And if you're watching on Mark's channel, I feel like that's gonna be like kind of the main
go-to,
place
yeah.
for like actual dialogue or feedback. Make sure to let us know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe,